senior and junior campus. And we have, late last year, we just put out our latest principals report. It's all very exciting. So if you're keen to know a little bit more about what we do on junior and senior campus at James Hogarth, that's a really good way for you to understand that. Lots of good pictures. I'm forced the youth workers to take pictures. And so there's some really cool pictures and some really cool things that they've been up to. We're very, very blessed to be able to have youth workers on our school campuses here in Chicago, and we are incredibly thrilled that that continues this year, so we're pretty excited. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about that, I want to give that one a bit of a plug as well. All right, now I was wondering, do you think men, maybe, because I don't want to sort of be too sort of broad here, do you think men just get cheaper the older they get? Because I feel like I'm getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, you know what I mean? Like, why spend that much money when, maybe it's not just recently, when I was back in South Africa, counterfeiting is, particularly sporting shirts is like a really big deal. And you can get like a sporting shirt for like a third of the price of the original. The tricky thing, of course, though, is generally speaking, the color comes off onto your skin, which is not a positive, but it's, you know, it just happens. And then the other thing is, it tends to, like, all the lettering comes off as soon as you wash it, like the first time. But have you ever sort of, I understand that, in fact, that there is quite a second, like a market in knock-off high-end bags and purses. In fact, people go to great lengths to fake high-end bags and purses. Anybody buy fake bags here? No, all right. Trying to not make everybody confess. I once bought a counterfeit ticket to get into a rugby game. It was the saddest day of my life. It was actually around the corner here, back when Super Rugby used to come to Invercargill every now and again. Somebody sort of said, "Oh, I've got a ticket for you if you want one." Bought it and I couldn't get in. Counterfeiting, it happens, right? We're always, in that case, you're probably not smart enough to figure it out too quickly. But sometimes it's a choice. Sometimes we choose, like with knockoff bags or with knockoff. But the reality is that most of the time we know when we're purchasing something that's not authentic, right? The text, the feel, the generally sort of we can tell when things are not authentic. And today what I'd like to talk about is, I want to talk about authenticity, but I want to talk about it from the aspect of our own lives, our own inner lives, right? The stuff that nobody else gets to see except us. How can we be real with ourselves is the question I want to ask today. Now, several years ago now, I came across a website called Post Secret. I don't know, anybody know Post Secret? Post Secret before? All right, well, you'll be familiar with it after this. It started out as a community arts project by a man called Frank Warren, and it's ballooned into quite a worldwide phenomenon now. Literally hundreds of thousands of people across the globe have participated in this project. It's an invitation. Frank Warren gives an invitation for people to share just a small part of themselves that no one else gets to see. It's that thing that it's an opportunity to show people who you are when nobody else gets to see it. When you're alone, when that voice in your head is saying things that you shouldn't be hearing, when we want to share our hopes and our dreams that we're not quite willing to just articulate quite out loud. The idea is really, really simple. Anonymous people decorate a postcard, and on it they have to tell a secret, something deeply personal about their life. Now, there are only two stipulations that there are in order to participate in this particular project. One, it has to be true. And the second one is that you must never have told the secret to anybody else. Other than that, there are no stipulations onto the content of the secret. So I will say, if you decide to go and investigate this a little bit later, some of them are quite clearly not safe for church. Okay, so just a warning. The theory behind this is very simple, is that people carry stuff with them. And sometimes it's big things, sometimes it's earth-shaking things, other times it's small things, petty things, things that we maybe they're so petty we don't want to let other people know how petty they are. And we hold on to these things, but we never ever sort of either look for or find safe spaces to be able to talk about them. We hold on to them. Whatever that secret is, big or small, this is just a brief moment. Frank Warren provides just this brief moment for somebody to be real, to find acceptance, even if it is just for just a brief second. Here's what I mean. I'll show you a couple of them. They're all good. How about this one? I give decaf to customers that are rude to me. The barista. I promise I don't do that behind. We don't have decaf. We don't know what that is here. What about this one? I tell people that I don't believe in God when really I just refuse to worship God, that my grandfather hurt me like he did. Profound, deep. Some hurt there. There's some real hurt there. Next one. My dog looks at me sometimes. I always wink back in case it's some sort of code. Right, not so deep, this one. Not so deep. I got a parking citation. This one's a bit criminal. I got a parking citation, so did the car next to me. I replaced the ticket on the car next to me with mine. My ticket got paid, and the one I took, I mailed it to Post Secrets. Good? I smile all the time so that nobody knows how sad and lonely I really am. That's really... Dear friend, I've never told you this, but I was on my way home to swallow all of my medicines that day. You saw me on the bus stop and gave me a hug. Thank you. I like to leave encouraging notes on strangers' windshields. Maybe it'll happen to me one day. Is that it? I think that's it. It's heartbreaking. Some of them are just absolutely gut-wrenchingly heartbreaking. People that hold these things in, that have no place to tell them to anybody else. And that's one of the reasons why Post Secret actually provides such a service. Because there's an opportunity, it's in a very anonymous environment to be able to share something that you've held onto for so very long. And as I said, some of them can be deep and profound and really, you can see the hurt in them, and others of them can be quite innocuous, almost like a criminal. Frank believes that telling a secret in and itself is healing. We carry these secrets with us, and what happens if we share those with others? What happens if we just, for a moment, turn to the person next to us and tell them our deepest, darkest secret? We won't do that, I promise. We won't do that today. Maybe next week. What happens if we share the deepest parts of ourselves with somebody else? And Post Secret, because of this, has become an incredible advocate for mental health, something that has been stigmatized for so long, right? It's slowly but surely becoming more, a better place, to be honest, but in reality, we still have a long way to go, right? So Post Secret has been an incredible advocate for mental health, particularly. And I think Post Secret has tapped into something in our culture. We struggle to be real with ourselves, right? We hold on to painful secrets and struggles because even we don't want to be real and honest with ourselves about what's going on in our lives. Because to voice a deep secret or personal secret is to admit to ourselves that there's something very real about it, possibly even something wrong with us. To shape that into words is enormous and sometimes too big for us to do, even if it might be true. And one of the biggest criticisms of Post Secret from psychologists and counselors is simply telling a secret to an anonymous group of people who don't know you, will never meet you, lacks any real sense of healing power, right? Why? Because apart from that momentary rush that you possibly get from having your secret published on a web page or on a Facebook page, the reality is that you're not really being honest with anybody because nobody really knows you there. There's no ongoing benefits to that because the reality is that's all there is you get to shock somebody momentarily for a few seconds. But the reality is the secret's still ours, right? It hasn't moved anywhere because we've given nobody the space to be able to help us with it. They argue that a secret shared with a loved one or a confidant has much more empowering value because only in relationship that we really find true acceptance, love, and grace, right? And I think that's really, really important. I really do think that's really, really important. So why does post-second thrive the way it has? I guess because there are a lot of people out there that are so very, very eager to unburden themselves. It costs them nothing. It asks nothing for change. It doesn't ask anybody to change their behavior. And really only seeks to shock others, possibly. Because ultimately, those people that are possibly putting in their seekers are not really looking for change, right? They're just looking to share their voice very momentarily. We're asking others to validate our choices, I guess. We're not really looking to do anything about it. We're not really to face our inner lives or address our inner lives, or really to get real with ourselves. And I think it kind of reveals to us in our culture this kind of split personality that we have, a public and a private persona. The kinds of lives sometimes we lead in private are different to those that we live publicly. And what it really reveals to some extent is a lack of authenticity at the core of who we are as people, right? An unwillingness to look within, an unwillingness to be honest with ourselves and who we're real. And I think nowhere is this probably more pronounced and obvious than with our young people, particularly within our faith communities. Young people who grow up in strong faith communities with high ethical and moral values can go one of two ways, right? You either meet the standard, and all of our church kids understand what it means to be a person of faith, a young person of faith. You either meet the standard or you don't. And so you fudge it, you fake it. And the higher the standard is, the higher the bar is, the less likely we are to address those inner issues that we face as people and to deal with it. And so, for many of us, and I include myself in this, my dad, I'm a PK, pastor's kid, we learn to live with a slightly split personality. So addressing it, we head off into adulthood, and what it does is it kills our ability to grow as Christians. This is something I struggled with phenomenally as a teenager, as a pastor's kid. And I think pastors' kids, struggle generally, probably more so than any others. What do you want to say? It's tough being a kid in general. As a young person, I didn't meet that standard. I didn't behave. I didn't know how to. I struggled. So I played the game. In private, I was one thing. In public, I was a different thing. It was two different people at school and at home. Because it had to be that way, right? Because nobody accepts me for who I really am, right? One of the most significant issues that I faced was my own doubts about God. And as a pastor's kid, church is not a safe place to be when you want to talk about your doubts about faith, right? You don't want to say, I'm not really sure I believe this. Definitely not the pastor's kid. The point is that I knew what the behavior my parents expected of me, both at home and at church, and so I played the game. But everywhere else, I would do my best to break the mold because I didn't want to fit into that mold. I didn't want to be the Christian goody two-shoes. And as a young adult, I would able to articulate this idea that I wanted my public life and my private life to match. For the longest time, those were two different worlds for me. So what changed? For me particularly was finding a mentor, a discipleship partner. It was an older guy, a guy called Dave, and we talked a lot. And it shaped me, it profoundly shaped me. It didn't happen in 1 week, it didn't happen in 2 weeks. It took months and years. But finally, I was able to be honest with myself, to begin to work out some of those inconsistencies that were in my life. And you might say, well, what kid doesn't face these issues? What adult doesn't face these issues? And you're probably right. But I think the real tragedy is sometimes we bring this into adulthood and we never find a way to create a resolution. We don't get to wrestle with it. We don't get to face it. It becomes an insurmountable problem or an issue that seems to be irreconcilable. We ditch our faith because somewhere along the line, we just can't get them to match. And what we're talking about today is authenticity. To be the real deal, the genuine article, not the knockoff sports shirt or the knockoff bag, but the real deal. A person who's living a faithful life, right? To be honest, inside and out. For our personal and private lives to somehow be together. And that doesn't mean that we're perfect, because that's what I used to think. I used to think that you had to somehow get it all together and be perfect, but the reality is you don't have to be perfect. It just means that we own who we are. So what is authenticity then? There's one passage, particularly in Ephesians 4:22 and 24. It's a very famous Bible verse. You find it on coffee mugs all over the place. And in which Christians are called to put off our old self, which belongs to the former life, and is corrupt through deceitful desires, and be renewed by the spirit of your minds, to put on the new self, created in the likeness of God, to true righteousness and holiness. I think authenticity is that could be described as our ability and our willingness to expose somewhat our brokenness, our failures and our mistakes, and to live in the knowledge of God's grace and love, and to be able to teach that to other people. It doesn't require perfection. You notice there's no perfection there. It's simply being able to own who we are and be able to share that with another person. An authentic person is one who's both privately and publicly putting off their old self, by God's grace, putting on the renewed self, to choose to live our lives differently. This kind of authenticity expresses itself different in different people in different ways, right? But we know when we come across a truly authentic Christian person, right? It's almost contagious. It's almost infectious. I've got this one guy I love meeting. He's one of my leaders from North Poirot, so down in Poirot. An incredible man who just somehow just seemed to be so real, and the kids would absolutely respond. I was absolutely jealous about this guy because he had just this sort of magnetic personality around him. But it wasn't just his personality; it was just the ability to be able to be profoundly honest with everyone around him, and people loved him for that. Now, I got to meet him, hang out with him a couple of months ago, and he's still the same guy with a profound and deep understanding of the nature and love of Jesus. He's in New Zealand with the downturn. He became a truck driver, and now he's working in youth ministry for a church in Christchurch. When we see authenticity, when we see somebody that has embodies those values, it's almost magnetic. It's something we're drawn to. So what does that look like? So here's a couple of things that I want to point to, just as we sort of get down to the nitty-gritty here. Here's a couple of things I think we should practice regularly as authentic Christians. Don't go alone. Our inner lives, the things that hold power over us, the secrets that hold power, they're just those. They're secrets, right? Those things only hold power over us because we choose not to let go of them. We choose not. It doesn't have to be that way. And we can continue to choose to let those things have power over us. But the reality is that if we're going to really try to take a step forward, ultimately we're going to have to find somebody that's going to help us take that step forward. Somebody that we can be real with, to talk things through. You don't have to do this alone. The whole faith journey thing was not designed to do alone. So don't go alone. Being real with ourselves means we need to find and need to name the things that are holding us back. To name the doubts and the fears that we can't let go of. And to not let them control ultimately our destiny. Don't go alone, because you were not designed to do this faith journey alone. You were designed to do this in community, with a group of people that care about you and are willing to journey with you. If you're not connected to a small group, if you're not connected to this church in a way that feels real, I'd encourage you to have a conversation with me after this. How can we connect you into a group of people that will care for you and walk alongside you? Second one is stop playing games. Don't get caught in the trap of playing games with God. Getting in the way of your relationship with God. Choose to do something else. Verse 22 very clearly says, put off your old self. It's this decision to make a change. It's a decision to take a step in a particular direction. Be intentional, be proactive, not reactive. Ultimately, being real with ourselves is admitting that we don't get it right? And we can't do it on our own. We need to choose to shape our lives in the way in which God has created us to be. So playing games with God means that we're more worried about what other people think of us than we are about what God thinks of us. So stop playing games. If you're serious about this, if you want to move forward, don't think that you can do it on your own. Number 3, and this is probably the most difficult of all, be vulnerable and tell your story. Be a storyteller. Among believers, confess your origins as well as the ways you're still broken. There was a lovely man in my church. He was an elder. He was a reasonably well-known cricketer as well. He played for South Africa several times. One of the most important but one of the most embarrassing things for he and his wife was that they'd lived together before that married. In fact, they'd had a child before they got married. And even 20 years later, with another 3 kids in the house, I remember we had this conversation. He was just genuinely embarrassed. He didn't want to talk about it because he felt like that was a big secret that he had to hold on to. And the funny thing is, I think sometimes we all have those kind of moments. And the reality is that telling his story was so much powerful for these guys, for the young guys around him. To hear that story of the fact that, well, I stuffed up, but here's what I did, here's what I did, and here's what God has through that particular circumstance. Try to articulate how you yet tell people where you're going to, but how you've not quite got there yet. Because the reality is that's all the journey we're on, right? None of us can honestly stick our hand up and go, right, I'm done. I'm there. Spiritual maturity, tick. The reality is that we're all on a journey, right? We're all moving towards a place. Nobody has arrived yet. Nobody has got the gold medal yet. The reality is we're all works in progress. We're all obsessed. If you look at Marvel comics, this massive sort of movie sort of explosion of Marvel, we're fascinated with superhero origin stories, right? So why not origin story? Where did you come from? How did you get to this place? Tell your story. I think it's so important for young people to hear. Every year we bring in adults to come and tell their story to our youth group. And some of them have been quite surprising. And we probably should have done some more research, but all of them have been incredibly powerful. There's some moments where you can hear a pin drop in our youth group as a person, one of our congregation has told their story. And it's incredibly powerful, young people to hear, because often all they see is just a group of perfect adults that have all just arrived. But the reality is they don't necessarily see that we're all works in progress, right? So tell your story. I think it's so important for young people to hear that. And even with your own young people, don't create impossible standards for them to make. The reality is that they're formative, their lives are just developing. Help them demonstrate your own personal life, your own commitment to your faith journey. But also when you mess up, it's important to be able to confess that to our young people, to our children. Hey, I didn't do so well here. I should have done something different. Mirror for your young person that journey of faithfulness. Be willing to share not just the good stuff, but the bad stuff as well. Story is incredibly powerful. That's why we love movies. And embrace the tension is my last one. This is a journey, right, which means it's not all done and dusted. You're going to fall over from time to time. You're going to make mistakes. This side of heaven, there is no such thing as perfection. So embrace the tension. It's okay. Fall over, get up, do it again. Fall over, get up, do it again. Because the reality, that is our lives here. But choose to do that honestly and with a group of people. Hey, so when you came in this morning, you would have been given a communion cup. They're terribly impressed with that. I didn't get one. Can I get one, please? I want to invite Kath and the worship team up to play some gentle music behind us. Thank you so much. Is there anybody else that hasn't got one? Oh, that's plenty of it. All right, would you mind? If you're at home, not sure what you can do, but grab some grape juice and bread. As we come to the table this morning, I just want to reflect a little bit on what we've spoken about this morning, authenticity. As we come to the table, we come profoundly as broken people, right? That's what the table of Christ represents, is a need. Something that we can't do for ourselves. Something that Christ has done for us. That he has stepped into our place, that he's assumed all of the things that we've done, and we are forgiven, and we find grace in Christ. But to come to the table fundamentally is to understand that we are sinners in need of grace. So this morning, as we've talked about authenticity, as we've talked about this need to be honest with ourselves in the most inward places, I want to just give you a moment as we just invite you to spend just a few moments in your own private and personal thoughts. And just bring some of those things that you struggle with to God this morning. Bring those to the table this morning. Because that's what the communion table is for. We're broken, we need grace. And every time we participate in this very simple ceremony, we remind ourselves again of the grace found in Christ. So this morning I would have you know that you are loved, that no matter where you come from or what you've done, or where you're going to, that God of the universe loves you and cares. And he invites you to come and to see his grace in action here at the communion table. This morning, just going to take a few moments and bring those things that you struggle with to God. And then I invite you to take these very simple elements of bread and wine to celebrate again what Christ has done.